Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé, the tell-all. Let's watch.
Ben, could we borrow you for an interview?
Sorry, guys. I lost my respect for him when he called me a predator. I did not like that. Everybody's only seeing a part of me. You know what I'm saying? And I don't feel like I was a predator. I feel like I'm 51 years old. I went for what I wanted.
Okay, so from the beginning, I don't know why, I've been hypothesizing that upon watching the show, Kim would be mortified at some of her behavior. And I'm not hearing that in her language, which worries me because now she's reacting to what Ben was saying, that comparing her to a predator, which is basically what he was doing. And she's upset about that. Yeah, okay. But she has this language like, I'm going after what I want. Yeah, we saw that. That was clear. You wanted to have sex with him, and that was clear. You wanted to be his girlfriend. You want to marry him. Yeah, but it's fine. Go for what, but are his feelings considered? Is it appropriate to pressure someone to have sex with you? I don't know if you wouldn't say like, well, I was just going after what I want, like, I walk into a McDonald's and I push someone down and I order, I'm in line and I just push everyone out of the way, and I get to the front of the line and everyone starts yelling at me, hey, I'm just going after what I want. That's not a justification.
That's how I feel. And if it came across that I'm a predator, get the out of here. You shouldn't even said that to me. It was an insult to me as a woman.
Yeah, but there were scenes, at least the way that it was edited, that, predator is strong. I'm sure some people would use that word for her, but I wouldn't. I would say very pressuring and pushy about something that you could have just given a little bit more time. Yeah, like you were absolutely pressuring things.
That I'm a predator, get the out of here. You shouldn't even said that to me. So Ben called me a predator.
He called you a predator?
He called me a predator. He said I was, what was it? The gazelle and the...
That would not be the summary that I would have of that conversation. I would not say, Ben called me a predator. Now, this relates to therapy quite a bit, actually, because I know a number of you are therapists out there watching, and I know you know this, but just a reminder that, or I'll just tell you my experience. When I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I've worked with individuals, I have worked with couples, I've worked with families and group therapy. And what I discovered early in my career was when I would talk to a family or a couple, and I would sometimes meet individually with the members of the system, that I would hear a story from one person. They'd be telling me the story like, oh, this happened, and I'd be like, whoa, what? That person did what? And then I would talk to the other person and they would give me their side of the story, and I'd be like, oh, wait, what? They did. And I learned over time that when people tell their stories, how it's laced with how it felt to them rather than what really happened. And it really benefited me because when I learned that, hour after, the thing about therapy is you learn very quickly because there's so much therapy that you do in the beginning. It's just like all day long, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for years. You accumulate a lot of experience pretty quickly. And so I learned that, that notion. And so when I'd have individual clients and I would never meet their spouse or their family, I learned to be skeptical of their story, not to deny, or I wouldn't necessarily even confront them or even indicate that I wasn't accepting or believing entirely their spin. But it was helpful for me because if an individual comes to me and starts telling me their spin, imagine she comes in and maybe she's Ben and her are coworkers or something, and Kimberly comes in and says, yeah, this guy at work called me a predator. And over time, I learn, especially about Kimberly, that she has a tendency to exaggerate or spin or to speak from how it felt rather than what really happened. If that happened, and she tells me a story and I just believed it completely, I would say, wow, what a jerk face. Let's move on in life. Instead of, well, what is it about? So I wouldn't say you're lying because I wouldn't know, but I would go down a road of exploration with Kim, perhaps, by saying, so when he said that, how did it feel to you? Or why was he saying that? And so she'd give me a little more context, and I'd be like, oh, so when he was saying that thing, it triggered something in you. It sounds like you're having a reaction. Tell me about that. Because in all likelihood for Kim, she knows, there's a part of her that knows that she's pushy. I'm guessing she's with Usman, this isn't the first time she's been pushy. Isn't the first time she's been like a bulldozer. Isn't the first time she's been demanding and overreactive. I'm just going to take a guess and say that this isn't an isolated thing for Kim. And that she will occasionally be aware of that and feel terribly ashamed and will then quickly avoid it. And but that's not going to help, right? She would benefit by not being ashamed of herself, but by being able to look at herself and have someone like me accept her even for what she thinks is a shameful thing. I don't think it's shameful that she was pushy. I think she should look at it and she should try to understand why she's doing it. I'm pretty sure it's because of desperation, and she's insecure, and she feels like if she doesn't chase something, she'll never get it, which I don't think is true. Even with Usman, I think she could have absolutely slowed down and still had a relationship build with him. So it's not a matter of shame, but it's a matter of looking at it. And I'm guessing in this moment for Kim, as Ben was telling her, you were being pushy, there's a part of her that believes that very much so and is so ashamed of it that she quickly engages in a defense of, well, he's a jerk face, he's calling me a predator. And she frames it that way, so it gives her the ability to reject it without having to face it.
Yeah, I think it's rude. Here you are dating all these really young women, but, why can't a woman do that? That's what I don't like about the double standard.
And that's how I feel too.
All right, guys, let's go down. Set.
Memphis is, bringing up an interesting point that it's not fair for Ben to call you a predator when Ben's the predator. I mean, that's not Memphis is saying, but I'm sure other people would. I don't think anyone's a predator. I think that Ben was also being pushy, right? Not over text, seemingly. That seemed to be absolutely mutual in terms of what we know about the text back and forth. So anyway, but Memphis is also saying that there's a double standard, which I think is true in society, but I don't think on the show. I think in society, age gaps where in heterosexual relationships where the man is older is much more acceptable and sometimes considered the ideal, which is just kind of strange. It's like, why would there be an ideal thing? Because of ideas of dominance and that sort of stuff and misogyny. But and when you have an older woman, then everyone's like, ew, what's wrong with that guy? Or why would you date an older woman? Like, gross. And absolutely, there's a problem in society. On the show, though, I think that the way they edit it and the way people react is anytime there's an age gap, I think particularly when it's a man, it's reacted to pretty strongly. And in fact, I think when there's an age gap and the woman is older, there's certainly hatred that I see in comments and stuff. But I think there's a little bit more acceptance of that. Overall, it's stigmatized for sure. Think about like Stephanie and Ryan. Think about Kim and Usman. I don't know if people focus on the Kim and Usman age difference, because Usman doesn't seem he doesn't seem young, like he doesn't know the way of the world. Anyway, but you think anyway, point is that on the show though, I think there's a real quick reaction against men when there's an age gap difference without having any data for a sliver of the viewing population to immediately accuse that person of being a predator and grooming the person. And let me talk about this a little bit because I won't go on too long of a tangent, but I've talked about this before. We all understand that this show triggers things in us, and some of you will actually even comment below. Like, one person commented saying that they take a sick pleasure in watching Ben suffer, and she noticed this in herself. She's like, "Oh, that Ben, what a piece of crap, and Mahogany is fine, but Ben," I don't know if I'm characterizing exactly right, but we can imagine someone having this reaction. And what she learned over time, she's like, "Oh, this relates to my childhood, because when I was young, my parents got divorced, and my dad married someone that was very young, a lot younger than him. And when I was living with my dad and my stepmom, who was quite young, there was a lot of strife and conflict, and I still to this day resent my dad for all that entailed." Now, I'm guessing the age gap between that person's dad and stepmom had little to do with the strife. That it probably became part of the focus, but because I've seen plenty of people with age gaps in relationships have perfectly wonderful, attuned relationships. It probably has more to do with the deficiencies in the father's parenting, and as a result of the way their father was raised. Point is that for the viewer, there's this resentment and pain around the way she was treated by dad and stepmom. And so when she watches the Ben story, she actually frames it as Ben is a creep and a predator because of things that happened in her own life. So we can imagine that would happen for all of us, right? All of us have histories. And I think that's why these shows, particularly 90 Day Fiancé, is so compelling, because all of us have a Gino in our past. All of us have elements of Mike in ourselves. All of us have a family member who was like Kim. All of us have a parent who was, or many of us have a parent who was like Ben at some point, or elements that are sort of reminiscent of that. And it gives us an opportunity to yell at the screen, scream at the screen, that in a way that we were never allowed to. And it also gives us a chance to see someone suffer, right? Because we project our parents onto these individuals, and we watch them suffer, and then we see the gang bullying that happens from the internet and the world onto these people, and we're like, yeah, because a lot of us have those traumas. I implore you, I beg you, I encourage you, that's a better word, to notice that in yourself. And one, don't bully the cast members. These are regular human beings, as all people are, and don't deserve bullying at all. So that, two, it as a barometer, looking at yourself like, oh, I got some issues that I need some healing, that I deserve to heal from. And so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm like, oh, I still have some unfinished business with my dad. I'm going to go to therapy and or focus on it, or create art around it, process it, something along those lines, because you deserve that. All right. Well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.